The sun hung low over the rolling fields of Darlington County, South Carolina, painting the sky a bruised orange. It was July 2025, and the air was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin like a second shirt. Amara Jackson, 42, stood on the porch of her family's century-old farmhouse, her calloused hands resting on the splintered railing. The land stretched out before her 100 acres of rich, black soil, dotted with rows of corn, collards, and sweet potatoes. This was her inheritance, her anchor, the legacy of ancestors who'd toiled through slavery, Jim Crow, and every other attempt to break them. Amara, a former Delta Force operative, had faced death in deserts and jungles, but nothing scared her more than the thought of losing this ground. Her niece Zoe, 19, bounded out the screen door, her braids swinging, phone in hand. "Auntie, you see this?" she said, thrusting the screen toward Amara. A local news article blared about another black farmer selling his land to Pinnacle Development, a company that seemed to sprout like kudzu across the county. Amara's jaw tightened. She knew it wasn't a sale, it was theft, dressed up in paperwork and threats. Pinnacle had been circling Darlington like vultures, backed by Sheriff Warren Tate, a man whose badge was just a license to bully. Taxes spiked, liens appeared out of nowhere, and families, mostly black and Latino, were pushed off their land. Amara's farm, fertile and close to a new highway, was their crown jewel. "Zoe, put that down and help me with the irrigation," Amara said, her voice low but firm. She didn't trust phones or the internet, not after years dodging surveillance in war zones. Zoe, though, was a digital native, her thumbs dancing over her screen, tweeting about the community meeting they'd attend that night. "Folks need to know what's happening," Zoe said, her eyes fierce. "They're stealing our history." Amara nodded, pride flickering in her chest. Zoe was her sister's daughter, left in her care after a car accident took her parents 3 years ago. At 19, Zoe was sharp, stubborn, and already dreaming of journalism school, determined to tell the stories the world ignored. But Darlington wasn't kind to dreamers, especially not black ones. The county was a patchwork of old money and new greed, where Confederate flags still flew on some lawns and Sheriff Tate's word was law. As dusk settled, Amara and Zoe piled into their battered Ford pickup, its engine coughing like an old smoker. The community meeting was at Mount Zion Baptist, a small church that doubled as a resistance hub. Reverend Ellis, a wiry 60-year-old with a voice like thunder, had called it to rally landowners against Pinnacle's tactics. The pews were packed: black farmers, Mexican immigrants, a few white allies who'd seen their neighbors vanish. Amara sat in the back, her eyes scanning the room, instincts honed from years of spotting threats. Zoe, beside her, typed furiously, live tweeting the meeting to her 2,000 followers. Reverend Ellis preached fire. "They want our land, our sweat, our story," he said, slamming his fist on the pulpit. "But we ain't selling our souls." The crowd roared, and Amara felt a spark, hope, maybe, or defiance. She spoke up, her voice steady, recounting how Pinnacle had sent her a buyout offer, so low it was an insult. "They think we'll break," she said. "But this land is my blood. I'm not going anywhere." The meeting stretched late, and by 10 p.m., Amara and Zoe were back on the road, the pickup's headlights cutting through the dark. The air was heavy, crickets screaming in the fields. Zoe hummed a Cardi B song, her phone glowing as she scrolled through replies to her tweets. Amara's hands gripped the wheel, her mind replaying the meeting. She'd seen fear in the crowd, but also fight. Maybe they could hold the line. Then, red and blue lights flashed in the rearview. Amara's stomach dropped. "Zoe, stay calm," she said, pulling over onto the gravel shoulder. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up, and Deputy Carl Hensley stepped out, his flashlight blinding. 2 more deputies, Evan Tate, the sheriff's son, and Brody Walsh, flanked him, their hands on their holsters. Hensley, a wiry man with a permanent smirk, leaned against the truck. "Evening, Amara," he drawled. "Taillights out. Step out the vehicle." Amara's pulse quickened, but her face stayed stone. "Taillights fine, Carl. I checked it this morning." Her voice was even, but her eyes locked on his, reading the lie. Hensley's smirk widened. "Gotta search the truck. Routine stop." Zoe, in the passenger seat, quietly hit record on her phone, angling it to catch the deputies. Amara caught her glance. "Smart kid." "I know my rights," Amara said. "You got no probable cause." Hensley's eyes narrowed, and Evan Tate stepped forward, his hand twitching toward his gun. "Don't make this hard," he said, his voice dripping with entitlement. Amara's training kicked inch clocked their positions, the weight of her concealed Glock against her hip. She was licensed, always careful, but she knew how this game worked. In Darlington, a black woman with a gun was a headline waiting to happen. Hensley reached into the truck's open window, finding a plastic bag of white powder in the glove box. "Well, damn," he said, holding it up like a trophy. "Looks like we got traffickers." Zoe gasped, her phone still rolling. "That's not ours," she shouted. Amara's mind raced. This was a setup textbook. She'd seen it before, in war zones and small towns alike. Plant the evidence, make the arrest, seize the property. "Out of the truck now," Hensley barked, grabbing Amara's arm. That was his mistake. In a blur, Amara twisted his wrist, disarming him with a move she'd practiced 1,000 times. His gun clattered to the ground and Evan Tate drew his, shouting, "Hands up!" Brody lunged for Zoe, who screamed, still filming. Amara's instincts took over. She drew her Glock, firing a single shot into the dirt near Tate's feet, a warning. The bullet kicked up dust and Tate yelped, clutching his shoulder where a ricochet grazed him. The deputies froze, stunned by her precision. "Zoe, get in!" Amara yelled, diving back into the truck. Zoe scrambled in and Amara floored it, tires spitting gravel as they roared into the night. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She just crossed the line. Firing on deputies, even in defense, made her a fugitive. Zoe, shaking, uploaded the video to X, her fingers flying. "They planted that shit," she said, voice cracking. "The world's gonna see this." Amara drove fast, cutting through back roads she knew like her own pulse. The radio crackled with chatter. Sheriff Tate's voice, furious, calling for backup. "Amara Jackson, armed and dangerous," he said, spinning a tale of a crazed veteran attacking his men. Amara cursed under her breath. Tate wasn't just a sheriff, he was a kingpin, and she just declared war. She pulled into a wooded clearing, killing the engine. "Zoe, you okay?" she asked, scanning her niece's face. Zoe nodded, tears in her eyes but fire in her voice. "They're not getting away with this." Her phone pinged. Her video had 50,000 views already, retweeted by activists in Atlanta and Charlotte. Comments flooded in. "Amara is innocent. Crooked cops." Amara felt a flicker of hope, but it was drowned by dread. They couldn't go home. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Amara's phone buzzed. A text from Jamal Carter, her old squad mate. "Heard the news. I'm coming. Where you at?" Jamal, 45, was a bear of a man, loyal to a fault, now running a security firm in Raleigh. She trusted him with her life, had since their days dodging IEDs in Iraq. She sent him their location, a coded message only he'd understand. "Stay low," she told Zoe. "We're not done fighting." They ditched the truck in a barn owned by Ms. Evelyn, a 70-year-old widow who'd known Amara's grandmother. Evelyn didn't ask questions, just handed them a thermos of coffee and a shotgun. "Ain't nobody touching y'all," she said, her eyes fierce. By midnight, Jamal arrived in a black SUV, his face grim but focused. "Tate's got the county locked down," he said. "But your girl's video? It's blowing up. We got a shot." He led them to a safe house, a rundown cabin owned by Reverend Ellis, hidden deep in the pines. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and hope. Reverend Ellis greeted them, his face lined with years of fighting battles no one saw. "You're safe here," he said. "But Tate's got dogs, drones, the works. We gotta move smart." Zoe showed him the video, now at 500,000 views. Ellis smiled. "The truth's a weapon, child. Keep firing." Amara sat by a cracked window, her Glock on her lap, listening to the distant hum of drones. She thought of her father, who'd taught her to shoot on this land, and her mother, who'd sung hymns while planting seeds. This farm was their blood, their fight. She'd been to war, seen horrors, but the Isher own town turning on her cut deeper. Zoe curled up on a cot, her phone still buzzing with notifications. "We're trending, Auntie," she murmured, half asleep. "They can't ignore us now." Jamal laid out a map, marking Tate's allies, deputies, councilmen, pinnacle execs. "This ain't just about your land," he said. "They're cleaning out half the county. We need evidence, hard proof." Amara nodded, her mind already working. She'd faced worse odds: Taliban ambushes, cartel snipers, but this was personal. Tate thought he could break her. He was about to learn what Delta Force meant. Outside, the night was alive with crickets and danger. Amara closed her eyes, not sleeping but planning. The spark had been lit, and Darlington would burn before she let her land go. The safe house was a cocoon of shadows, its walls creaking under the weight of a Carolina night. Amara Jackson sat cross-legged on the floor, her Glock within reach, as the faint glow of Zoe's phone lit the room. It was 2 a.m., 2 days since the ambush on the road, and the world outside was closing in. Drones hummed faintly in the distance, their red lights flickering like fireflies through the pines. Sheriff Warren Tate's manhunt was relentless, his voice crackling over every radio in Darlington County, painting Amara as a cop-killing lunatic. But Zoe's video, now at 1.2 million views, was a crack in his arm or a grainy, undeniable truth that had the internet ablaze with Amara is innocent. Zoe, 19, hunched over her phone, her braids spilling over her shoulders as she scrolled through comments. "They're calling you a hero, Auntie," she said, her voice a mix of awe and exhaustion. "But some folks are buying Tate's lies. Fox News is saying you're a radical ex-soldier." Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. She'd seen propaganda before Baghdad, Kabul, now Darlington. Same game, different uniforms. Jamal Carter, Amara's former Delta Force squadmate, leaned against the wall, his massive frame filling the doorway. At 45, he was still a wall of muscle, his eyes sharp from years of sizing up threats. "Tate's not just a crooked cop," he said, spreading a map across a rickety table. "He's the muscle for Pinnacle development. They're not just after your land, Amara. They're clearing out half the county for a private prison. Black farms, Latino orchards, poor white trailers doesn't matter. They want it all." Amara's fingers traced the map, her mind clicking like a chessboard. Pinnacle's name had been whispered at the community meeting, a ghost behind every foreclosure notice and tax hike. "We need proof," she said. "Hard evidence. Bank records, emails, something that ties Tate to their money." Zoe's eyes lit up. "I can get that." She'd been hacking since she was 15, teaching herself code between farm chores. "If Pinnacle's dirty, their servers are too. I just need a laptop and a signal." Reverend Ellis, the 60-year-old pastor who owned the safe house, overheard from the kitchen. "Got an old Dell in the attic," he said, his voice warm but weary. "But you're poking a hornet's nest, child." As Zoe set up the laptop, Amara and Jamal planned their next move. The safe house wouldn't hold forever. Tate's deputies were combing the county, and rumors of a $50,000 bounty had every wannabe vigilante sniffing around. Amara's military training kept her calm, but the stakes were personal now. This wasn't just about her land. It was about Zoe's future, Ms. Evelyn's defiance, the whole community's survival. By dawn, Zoe had cracked into Pinnacle's servers, her fingers flying over the keys. "Got something," she whispered, pulling up an email chain. It was a goldmine. Correspondence between Pinnacle's CEO, Randall Holt, and Sheriff Tate, detailing $200,000 in bribes wired to an offshore account in the Caymans. Another email outlined a plan to frame landowners with drug charges, forcing foreclosures. "This is it," Zoe said, her voice trembling with excitement. "We leaked this, Tate's done." But leaking it wasn't simple. The safe house had no Wi-Fi, and using Zoe's phone risked pinpointing their location. Jamal suggested a drop point, a gas station 10 miles away with public Wi-Fi. Amara hesitated. The roads were crawling with deputies, and Tate had posted her photo everywhere, calling her armed and dangerous. But the evidence was their weapon, and they couldn't sit on it. "We move at dusk," Amara decided. "Low profile, no mistakes." As they prepared, a new player entered the game. Clara Tate, the sheriff's 22-year-old daughter, slipped into the safe house just after noon, her law school hoodie soaked with sweat. She was pale, her eyes darting like a deer in headlights. "I know what my father's doing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm done covering for him." She handed Amara a USB drive. "Recordings. Him and Holt planning it all. I took them from his office." Amara studied Clara, searching for a trap. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not after years in war zones where betrayal meant death. But Clara's hands shook, and her eyes held a mix of guilt and resolve. "Why risk this?" Amara asked. Clara swallowed hard. "Because he's wrong. And because I'm tired of being his shadow. Zoe, ever the optimist, vouched for her. She's legit, Auntie. Her posts on X have been shading Tate for months. The recordings were dynamite. Sheriff Tate's voice, gruff and unapologetic, detailing how he'd clean out the county for Pinnacle. We plant the drugs, seize the land, split the profits, he said in one clip. Amara's blood boiled. This wasn't just corruption. It was a war on her people, her home. She pocketed the USB, her mind racing. We get this to the gas station, upload it with the emails. The world needs to hear it. But their plans unraveled at 3 a.m. A mole in the community later revealed as a scared farmer blackmailed by Tate leaked the safe house's location. Headlights pierced the darkness, and the roar of engines shattered the quiet. Deputies! Jamal hissed, grabbing his rifle. Amara shoved Zoe toward the back door, her Glock drawn. Move now. Reverend Ellis stayed behind, his shotgun ready, promising to buy them time. The escape was chaos. Amara led Zoe, Jamal, and Clara through the woods, her night vision training guiding them past roots and brambles. Drones buzzed overhead, their thermal cameras hunting body heat. Dogs barked, their howls echoing through the pines. Amara's heart pounded, but her focus was razor sharp. She remembered Fallujah, dodging sniper fire. This was no different. Stay low, follow my steps, she whispered, leading them into a swamp. The water was cold, waist-deep, and smelled of decay, but it masked their heat signatures. Behind them, gunfire erupted at the safe house. Reverend Ellis's voice boomed, "You ain't welcome here," followed by the crack of his shotgun. Amara prayed he'd make it out. They waded through the swamp for an hour, mosquitoes swarming, until they reached a dry ridge. Zoe, shivering, clutched her phone, the video and emails backed up to a cloud drive. "We can't lose this," she said, her teeth chattering. Clara, pale and silent, clutched the USB like a lifeline. Jamal scouted ahead, finding an abandoned shed where they could regroup. Inside, the air was stale, the floor littered with rusted tools. Amara checked her watch, 4:30 a.m. They had to reach the gas station by dawn, before Tate's men tightened the net. But Clara's presence gnawed at her. "If you're playing us," Amara said, her eyes hard, "you won't walk away." Clara met her gaze. "I'm risking everything. My father's already cut me off. I'm with you." Zoe's phone pinged a notification from X. Her video had hit 2 million views, and protests were forming in Darlington's town square. Young activists, black, Latino, and white, waved signs reading "Justice for Amara." But Tate fought back, holding a press conference at noon. Standing before a bank of cameras, he unveiled a drug stash, allegedly found in Amara's truck, claiming she was running a cartel operation. The lie was bold, but some local news stations ate it up, and online trolls flooded Zoe's posts with hate. "We need to hit harder," Zoe said, her voice fierce. She and Jamal crafted a plan. They'd upload the emails and recordings from the gas station, then live stream a statement to X, calling out Tate by name. Amara agreed, but her gut twisted. Every move was a gamble, and the bounty on her head was climbing $75,000 now, per a local radio report. She thought of her parents, their graves on the farm. "This is for them," she told herself, steeling her resolve. The gas station run was a high-wire act. At dusk, they borrowed a beat-up sedan from Miss Evelyn, who'd slipped them the keys with a wink. "Kick their asses," she'd said. Amara drove, her eyes scanning for checkpoints. Jamal rode shotgun, his rifle hidden under a blanket. Zoe and Clara crouched in the back, Zoe uploading files to a secure server while Clara clutched the USB. The gas station was a flickering oasis on a lonely highway, its Wi-Fi signal weak but functional. Zoe worked fast, uploading the emails and recordings to X, tagging every major news outlet from CNN to the route. The post went live at 7:15 p.m., and within minutes it exploded 500,000 views, then 1 million. Comments poured in. "Tate's finished. Expose Pinnacle." But as Zoe hit stream for their live statement, headlights flared in the distance. 2 sheriff's cruisers screeched into the lot, deputies piling out with guns drawn. "Get down!" Amara shouted, shoving Zoe behind a dumpster. Jamal returned fire, his shots precise, aiming to disable the cruiser's tires. Amara grabbed Clara, pulling her into the shadows. The deputies, Hensley among them, fanned out, their radios crackling with Tate's orders. "Take them alive if you can." Zoe, still streaming, whispered into her phone. "This is Zoe Jackson, Darlington, South Carolina. Sheriff Tate's trying to kill us for exposing his corruption. Share this." The firefight was quick but brutal. Amara used the gas station's pumps as cover, her Glock barking as she pinned down Hensley. Jamal took out a cruiser's engine with a well-placed shot. Clara, trembling, threw a rock at a deputy, buying Zoe a second to keep filming. Sirens wailed closer reinforcements. Amara made a call. "We split up," she said. "Jamal, take Zoe to the rendezvous. Clara with me." They scattered, Amara and Clara sprinting into a cornfield while Jamal and Zoe peeled out in the sedan. The live stream cut off, but not before it hit 3 million views. Amara's heart raced as she and Clara crouched among the stalks, deputies' flashlights slicing the night. She remembered a Delta Force mission in Syria, hiding in a bombed-out village. Same stakes, same calm. "Stay quiet," she whispered to Clara, who nodded, her breath ragged. They reached a creek, slipping into the water to mask their trail. Behind them, the gas station glowed. A deputy's cruiser burning after a stray bullet hit its fuel line. Amara's mind churned. The evidence was out, but Tate wasn't done. He'd doubled down, and they were still hunted. Clara's recordings and Zoe's emails were their ace, but getting them to the right hands, maybe the FBI meant surviving the night. As they hid, Amara's thoughts drifted to her Delta Force days. She'd lost a teammate, Marcus, to a corrupt officer's negligence in Afghanistan. His death had haunted her, a reminder that power without honor was a cancer. Tate was that cancer now, and she'd cut it out or die trying. Clara, beside her, whispered, "I'm sorry for what he's done." Amara squeezed her shoulder. "You're not him. You're choosing right." By midnight, they rendezvoused with Jamal and Zoe at an old mill, another of Reverend Ellis's safe spots. Zoe's phone was dead, but the damage was done. The internet was a wildfire of outrage. Pinnacle's stock had crashed 15% in after-hours trading, and the FBI was sniffing around Tate's office. But the sheriff wasn't out yet. Word came through a burner phone. Tate had hired a mercenary tracker, a former Blackwater operative named Kessler, to hunt Amara. The bounty was now $100,000. Amara looked at her team, Zoe fierce and exhausted, Jamal steady as ever, Clara fragile but resolute. The safe house was compromised, the roads were death traps, and Kessler was coming. But the truth was out, and Darlington was waking up. Protesters clogged the town square, their chants echoing online. Amara gripped her Glock, her resolve hardening. "We keep moving," she said. "We expose Tate or we bury him." The night stretched on, a chess game with lives at stake. Amara knew the board, every road, every hideout, but Tate held the pieces. For now. The air in Darlington County was electric, charged with the weight of a storm about to break. It was July 20th, 2025, a week since Amara Jackson and her makeshift family Zoe, Jamal, and Clara had scattered from the gas station firefight, their evidence against Sheriff Warren Tate now a wildfire across the internet. Zoe's uploaded emails and Clara's recordings had hit 5 million views, shared by activists, celebrities, and even a senator from Georgia. The hashtag Tate is corrupt trended globally, and Pinnacle Development stock was in free fall, down 30% in days. But Tate wasn't done. His voice still dominated local airwaves, spinning lies about Amara as a domestic terrorist, while his deputies tightened their grip on the county. The bounty on Amara's head was now $150,000, and Kessler, the Blackwater mercenary, was closing in. Amara crouched in the attic of an old tobacco barn, her Glock resting on her knee. The space was stifling, the air thick with dust and the faint tang of mildew. Zoe, 19, sat cross-legged, her phone charging off a portable battery, her face lit by the screen's glow. "Protests are growing," she whispered, scrolling through X. "They're outside the courthouse now, hundreds of people." Jamal, 45, stood by the attic's lone window, his rifle propped against the wall, his eyes scanning the dark fields below. Clara, the sheriff's 22-year-old daughter, clutched her knees, her law school hoodie stained with swamp mud. She hadn't spoken much since their escape, but her eyes burned with a quiet defiance. "We can't hide forever," Amara said, her voice low but steady. Her Delta Force training kept her grounded, but the stakes were suffocating. Tate's lies had painted her as a monster, And Kessler's reputation was no joke. He tracked insurgents in Iraq with chilling precision. We need to hit Tate where it hurts, she continued. Publicly. Somewhere he can't spin it. Jamal nodded, his jaw tight. He's holding a town hall tomorrow night. Televised. CNN, MSNBC, the works. He's gonna play the victim, say you're a threat to law and order. We crash it. Play Clara's recordings for the world. Zoe's eyes lit up. I can live stream it too. Double down on the evidence. Clara shifted, her voice barely audible. He'll have security. Deputies, maybe Kessler. It's suicide. Amara met her gaze. We don't go in blind. We plan, we execute, we get out. She'd run ops in hotter zones than Darlington, Fallujah, Mogadishu, but this was home, and that made it personal. The barn creaked as a breeze swept through, and Amara's mind raced. The town hall was their shot to expose Tate, but it was a gauntlet. They'd need every advantage. The plan came together fast. Reverend Ellis, who'd survived the safehouse raid, sent word through a burner phone. The community was ready to back them. Protesters would flood the town hall, creating chaos to cover their entry. Ms. Evelyn, the 70-year-old widow, offered her grandson's van, rigged with a hidden compartment for gear. Zoe would handle tech, looping Clara's recordings into the hall's AV system while live streaming to X. Jamal would run point on security, his rifle a last resort. Amara would lead, her combat instincts their edge. Clara, though hesitant, agreed to speak, her voice as Tate's daughter carrying weight no one else could match. By dusk the next day they were ready. The van rumbled toward Darlington's community center, a squat brick building packed with cameras and a restless crowd. Protesters lined the street, their signs bold, "Justice for Amara." End land grabs. Amara, disguised in a hoodie and ball cap, slipped out of the van with Jamal, Zoe, and Clara. The air buzzed with chants, the crowd a mix of black farmers, Latino workers, and white ally students, elders, families. Zoe's phone was already streaming, her voice steady. This is Zoe Jackson, live from Darlington. We're here to expose Sheriff Tate's corruption. Inside, the hall was a pressure cooker. Sheriff Tate stood at a podium, his face flushed, his badge gleaming under the lights. Cameras rolled as he railed against outside agitators and violent criminals like Amara. The crowd was split, some clapped, others booed. Amara's team slipped in through a service entrance, guided by a janitor who'd lost his home to Pinnacle. Zoe hacked the AV system in minutes, her fingers a blur on her laptop. Ready, she whispered, cueing Clara's recordings. Clara took a deep breath, stepping onto the stage as Tate paused for applause. The crowd gasped, everyone knew the sheriff's daughter. My father's a liar, she said, her voice shaking but clear. She held up a speaker and Tate's recorded voice boomed. Plant the drugs, seize the land, split the profits. The hall erupted, shouts, curses, cheers. Tate's face went white, his hand reaching for his radio. Arrest her, he roared, but protesters surged forward, forming a human chain between Clara and the deputies. Amara and Jamal moved fast, blocking the stage's side exits. Zoe's live stream hit 2 million viewers, the recordings looping on every screen in the hall. The crowd chanted, Tate must go, as cameras broadcast the chaos nationwide. But Tate wasn't out yet. Deputies pushed through, guns drawn, and Amara spotted Kessler in the shadows, his cold eyes locked on her. Time to go, she hissed, pulling Clara off the stage. Jamal fired a warning shot into the ceiling, scattering the deputies long enough for them to slip out. The escape was a sprint through alleys, the crowd's roars echoing behind them. Zoe kept streaming, her phone capturing their flight. They're chasing us, but the truth's out, she said, her voice raw. Sirens wailed and Kessler's silhouette loomed at the end of an alley, a silenced pistol in hand. Amara tackled Zoe behind a dumpster, her Glock raised. Stay down, she whispered, firing a shot that clipped Kessler's shoulder. He cursed, retreating, but Amara knew he'd be back. They reached the van, piling in as Miss Evelyn's grandson floored it. The live stream cut off, but not before it hit 4 million views. X was a storm of support. Amara's hero trended alongside Tate is corrupt. But Tate's retaliation was swift. By midnight, his deputies raided another safe house, this one a church basement where Reverend Ellis was hiding supplies. The attack was brutal, tear gas, batons, and a fire that gutted the building. Ellis escaped, but 2 volunteers were arrested, and the blaze lit up the night, a grim symbol of Tate's desperation. Zoe's phone pinged with a message from an anonymous source. FBI's watching. Send everything. Amara hesitated. Surrendering to the feds was a gamble. Corruption ran deep, and Tate had allies. But the evidence was ironclad, and the public was waking up. We can't run forever, Jamal said, his voice heavy. The trials are shot. Clara nodded, her face pale. I'll testify. He can't hide anymore. Amara made the call. They'd turn themselves in, but not to Teteto, the FBI field office in Colombia, 60 miles away. The drive was tense, every headlight a potential threat. Zoe uploaded backups of the evidence to a secure server, her hands shaking. Clara clutched the USB, her lifeline to redemption. Jamal drove, his eyes flicking to the rearview, watching for Kessler. Amara sat in the passenger seat, her Glock ready, her mind replaying a Delta Force mission gone wrong, a traitor in their ranks, a friend lost. She wouldn't lose Zoe or this fight. They reached the FBI office at dawn, greeted by agents who'd seen Zoe's live streams. Amara surrendered her gun, her hands steady despite the cuffs. You've got the wrong bad guy, she told the lead agent, a woman with sharp eyes. The agent nodded, glancing at Clara's USB. We'll see. The trial began a week later, a media circus that packed Darlington's courthouse. Amara sat in the defendant's chair, her face calm but her heart racing. Zoe, Jamal, and Clara were in the gallery, surrounded by supporters. Outside, protesters swelled to 1,000, their chants shaking the windows. Tate took the stand first, his voice smooth, claiming Amara had ambushed his deputies in a drug-fueled rage. His lies were polished, but cracks showed when Clara testified. My father's a criminal, Clara said, her voice breaking the courtroom's silence. She played the recordings again, Tate's voice damning him. Zoe followed, presenting the hacked emails, her testimony fierce despite the defense's attempts to paint her as a hacker. Jamal recounted the gas station firefight, his military record lending weight. But the turning point came from Ms. Evelyn, the 70-year-old juror, who stood during deliberations. I've lived here 70 years, she said, her voice cutting through the room. I've seen sheriffs like Tate break us before. Not this time. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Amara sat in her cell, staring at the wall, thinking of her parents' graves, the farm's oak trees, Zoe's future. When the verdict came acquitted on all charges, the courtroom erupted. Tate was arrested on the spot, charged with racketeering, bribery, and abuse of power. Pinnacle's CEO, Randall Holt, was named in a federal indictment, his empire crumbling. Outside, the crowd roared, a sea of black, Latino, and white faces united. Amara's army, they chanted, a name born on X and now a movement. Zoe live-streamed the victory, her voice cracking with joy. We did it, she said, hugging Clara. Jamal clapped Amara's shoulder, his grin wide. You're a damn legend, he said. Amara smiled, but her eyes were on the horizon. The fight wasn't over. Kessler was still out there, and Pinnacle had deep pockets. The community's triumph was palpable. That night, protesters occupied the sheriff's office in a peaceful sit-in, demanding reform. National Guard troops arrived but stood down as the crowd swelled, live-streamed by thousands. Amara's story was national news, her face on every screen. But she wasn't celebrating yet. She thought of Marcus, her fallen teammate, and the land she'd nearly lost. This is just the start, she told Zoe, her voice firm. We've got more to do. The reckoning had come, and Darlington would never be the same. The sun rose over Amara Jackson's farm, casting a golden glow across the fields of Darlington County, South Carolina. It was August 2025, 2 weeks since the trial that had shaken the county to its core. Sheriff Warren Tate was behind bars, his empire of corruption exposed by Amara, her niece Zoe, their ally Jamal, and Clara, the sheriff's own daughter who'd turned against him. The viral evidence, Zoe's live streams, Clara's recordings, and hacked email shad not only cleared Amara's name, but also toppled Pinnacle Development's predatory land grab scheme. The air felt lighter, but the scars of the fight remained, etched in the faces of the community and the singed earth where safe houses had burned. Yet, from those ashes something new was growing. Amara stood in the center of her 100-acre farm, her boots sinking into the rich soil her ancestors had worked for generations. At 42, she carried the weight of her Delta Force past missions in deserts, betrayals in war zones, but this victory, won on her own land, felt heavier. The farm was no longer just hers. It was a beacon, a symbol of what could be when people fought back. Zoe, 19, bounded toward her, her phone in hand, a grin splitting her face. "Auntie, we've got 10,000 followers on the Freedom Fields account," she said, her braids swinging. "People from Alabama, Georgia, even California are asking how to start their own." Freedom Fields was their new mission, born in the aftermath of the trial. Amara had envisioned it during those sleepless nights in Hidinga Cooperative, where the community could grow food, learn their legal rights, and stand together against exploitation. The idea had taken root faster than she'd expected. Neighbors, Black, Latino, and white, had shown up with shovels and seeds, turning her farm into a hub of hope. Ms. Evelyn, the 70-year-old widow who'd sheltered them, was planting collards alongside Maria, a Mexican immigrant whose orchard had been seized by Pinnacle. Kids ran through the rows laughing, while elders like Reverend Ellis shared stories of past struggles. Jamal Carter, 45, leaned against a fence post, his massive frame relaxed for the first time in weeks. His security firm was thriving, but he'd taken a leave to help build Freedom Fields. "We're gonna need more land," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Folks are coming from all over to learn how you did it." Amara nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. The farm was alive, tractors hummed, volunteers tilled soil, and Zoe taught a group of teens how to use social media to amplify their voices. It was more than a harvest, it was a reckoning's fruit. Clara Tate, now 22, stood apart, her law school hoodie swapped for a dirt-stained t-shirt. She'd been disowned by her father, but her testimony had sealed his fate. She approached Amara, holding a stack of legal pamphlets. "I wrote these up," she said, her voice steadier than before. "Guides on fighting foreclosures, knowing your rights. Can we hand them out?" Amara smiled, a rare softness in her eyes. "You're one of us now, Clara. Let's get them printed." The days after the trial had been a whirlwind. The FBI had raided Pinnacle's offices, seizing documents that linked the company to a network of corrupt officials across the South. Tate's arrest had sparked resignations. 2 deputies and a county councilman fled Darlington, their names tied to the scandal. The community, once fractured by fear, was knitting itself back together. Reverend Ellis's church, rebuilt after the fire, hosted weekly meetings where residents planned the next steps. "We ain't just saving land," Ellis preached. "We're saving our souls." But healing wasn't easy. Amara walked the farm at dusk, her thoughts heavy. She'd nearly lost everything: her freedom, her niece, her home. Flashbacks of her Delta Force days haunted her. Marcus, her teammate, dying in a dusty village because of a corrupt officer's greed. Tate had been that same kind of poison, but this time she'd won. She paused by an oak tree, its roots deep in the soil where her parents were buried. "I kept it," she whispered, her hand on the bark. "For you." Zoe's role in Freedom Fields was electric. She turned their X account into a national platform, posting tutorials on urban farming, legal defense, and community organizing. Her video, shot with a shaky phone but brimming with passion, drew thousands of likes. One clip, showing kids planting their first seeds, went viral with 3 million views. "This is how we fight back," Zoe narrated, her voice fierce. "Not with guns but with roots." She'd been accepted to journalism school at Howard University, her dream within reach, but she insisted on staying through the summer. "This is my story too," she told Amara. Jamal took on a new role, teaching self-defense. His classes, held in a clearing near the farm, drew men and women, young and old. "You don't need to be Delta Force to protect what's yours," he said, showing a grandmother how to disarm an attacker. He also started a scholarship fund in Amara's name, aimed at kids like Zoe who wanted to change the world. "You're the spark," he told Amara one evening, handing her a beer. "But these kids, they're the fire." Clara found her purpose in advocacy. She set up a legal clinic at the farm, helping families navigate the maze of property law. One afternoon, she saved a Latino family's orchard from foreclosure, her knowledge outsmarting a Pinnacle lawyer. "I used to think law was about power," she told Amara. "Now I know it's about justice." Her estrangement from her father stung, but she was building a new family here, one bound by choice, not blood. The movement spread beyond Darlington. Freedom Fields chapters sprang up in Georgia, Mississippi, and North Carolina, each adapting Amara's model to their own battles: urban gentrification, factory pollution, voter suppression. Zoe's social media connected them, creating a network of resistance. A CNN crew visited the farm, filming Amara as she spoke to a crowd of volunteers. "This land is our story," she said, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "They tried to steal it, but we took it back. Now we grow our future." The clip aired nationally and Freedom Fields trended for days. But not everyone celebrated. Kessler, the mercenary, had vanished after the alley fight, but Amara knew he wasn't gone. A cryptic note arrived at the farm, scrawled on torn paper. "This isn't over." Jamal tightened security, installing cameras and training a volunteer patrol. Amara didn't flinch, face worse, but she kept her Glock close. Pinnacle's parent company, a shadowy conglomerate, was still active, and whispers of new schemes reached Darlington. The fight was won, but the war wasn't over. The community's strength shone brightest at the first Freedom Fields Festival, held in late August. The farm buzzed with life. Tables groaned under platters of barbecue, collards, and cornbread, while a local band played hip-hop and gospel. Kids painted murals on barn walls, their art depicting hands breaking chains. Reverend Ellis blessed the event, his voice soaring. "We sow justice and we reap freedom." Amara stood with Zoe, Jamal, and Clara, watching families dance under string lights. Black, Latino, white, young, old, they were one, their laughter a defiance of the past. Zoe live-streamed the festival, her phone capturing the joy. "This is Darlington," she said to her 50,000 followers. "This is what happens when we fight together." Comments flooded in from across the country. "Start a chapter in Detroit. We need this in Texas." Amara watched, pride swelling in her chest. Zoe was her legacy, not just the land. Clara too found peace. She spoke at the festival, her voice steady as she shared her journey from shame to strength. "I was part of the problem," she said, tears in her eyes. "But you showed me how to be part of the solution." The crowd cheered and Miss Evelyn hugged her, whispering, "You're home now, child." As the festival wound down, Amara walked to the oak tree, Zoe at her side. The stars were bright, the air cool. "You think we'll keep this going?" Zoe asked, her voice soft. Amara looked at her, then at the fields alive with hope. "We don't have a choice," she said. "This is who we are." She planted a new seed by the tree, a promise to her ancestors and to the future. Freedom Fields wasn't just a farm, it was a movement, a testament to what courage and unity could do. Amara's story had sparked it, but the community carried it forward. Across the South, people were planting their own seeds, literal and figurative, refusing to let their stories be erased. As the festival's lights dimmed, Amara felt her parents' presence, their strength in her bones. She'd fought for their land, and now it was bearing fruit. The harvest was here, and it was just the beginning. Alright, y'all, let's talk real for a second. Amara Jackson's story isn't just some Hollywood script, it's the kind of grit and heart you see in everyday folks who refuse to let the world steamroll them. Ever had a moment where life felt like it was coming at you with a badge, a bribe, or a shady contract? Maybe it's your boss lowballing your raise, a landlord hiking your rent to Mars, or that one neighbor who keeps borrowing your Wi-Fi without asking. Looking at you, Dave. Amara's fight is our fight, whether it's for your home, your voice, or just the right to exist without someone trying to snatch your peace. Here's the tea. In 2025, the world's still a mess of power grabs and crooked systems, but it's also full of Amara's, Zoe's, and Clara's, people who say, "Not today, injustice." Think about it, social media's blowing up with folks exposing scams, from TikTok whistleblowers to X threads calling out shady politicians. Amara's lesson? You don't need a Delta Force badge to make a difference. Grab your phone, your truth, or even a shovel, and start planting your own freedom fields. Justice isn't served on a platter. It's grown one stubborn seed at a time. Now let's get a little spicy with the wisdom. Don't just sit there scrolling, waiting for someone else to fix the mess. Amara didn't wait for a superhero, she was the superhero, with a side of sass and a whole lot of strategy. So what's your land worth fighting for? Your community? Your rights? That last slice of pizza your roommate keeps eyeing? Drop it in the comments and let's start a revolution, or at least a really good group chat. Oh, and before you bounce, hit that subscribe button like Amara hit those deputies with the truth. We've got more stories of real people taking on the odds, and you don't want to miss them. Sow some justice, y'all, and let's keep the harvest growing.